Hi, I'm Linz. Welcome to Becoming Everwell, a channel where we talk about the ongoing journey of becoming. In today's life learning episode for Midlife You, we're talking about hidden agendas.
I make sense of life by writing about real everyday stuff that makes us who we are. Some of these snapshots are fun, some are more serious. Maybe they'll open up something in you too. Let's grow.
Almost 2 years ago, I got into an email kerfuffle with an entrepreneurial coach whose thought piece rubbed me the wrong way. He'd written a lighthearted piece that poked fun at the brand Lumi, which is a full-body deodorant. Perhaps you've seen their blunt ad campaign on women's stinking parts. If not, just Google most shocking Lumi ad and you will be enlightened. Net, I felt he'd been insensitive on the topic of women's hygiene, and since his piece invited feedback from his readers, I wrote him a private email with my thoughts. Admittedly, I spent far too much time carefully crafting the communication, but I delivered my message in a way that felt true to me with lines like, quote, "I'm disappointed that upon seeing Lumi's ad campaign that your move was to further alienate women with normal functioning bodies before doing some basic research and asking women who have the confidence to share truths about some unattractive realities of womanhood," end quote. No less than 20 minutes after sending my email, he wrote me back and said, quote, "I think you have an agenda," end quote. He also went on to say that he'd received many emails from women who thought his angle was funny, which I interpreted as gaslighting, but I digress. Truth is, I'm surprised that I'm drawn to this man's teachings at all because I perceive him to be unabashedly pompous, which turns me off in general about anyone. But I follow the work of a wide variety of thought leaders, coaches, and experts to broaden my scope, and despite his arrogant hue, he's a humanitarian who's often insightful, business savvy, and good with words. I appreciate his ability to claim and back up his perspective on the economy, humanity, and entrepreneurship. And him saying that he thought I had an agenda prompted an 11-part email exchange between us, all delivered with what felt like mutual respect. I eventually got to the heart of his point. He explained, quote, "An agenda is often quite legitimate, a position on climate, immigration, abortion, etc., except when it is a prism or litmus test through which one filters all issues," end quote. And by the way, I've decided not to cite him here, although I fully believe in citing sources, but because of the unflattering nature of this, I've left his name out. If you need to know who it is, just DM me and I'll let you know. He'd also noted his opinion that, quote, "This issue overwhelms my ability to laugh," end quote. He knew nothing about me, and I disliked his proclamation about me, so I found myself feeling defensive. But he also informed me that his, quote, "intent is to make people think whether they agree with him or not," end quote. And in effect, he satisfied his goal. Because of him, I often think about agendas. I'm not sure what he thought my agenda might have been with my initial email, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've wondered if in a hidden, unspoken way, I'd actually had an agenda to push this guy's ego down a notch. Meaning, as much as I appreciate learning certain things from him, his superior tone often irks me. Perhaps I subconsciously saw an opening in his logic and wanted to pounce. Under the guise of defending women's natural bodies and calling out ignorance around women's health, I wonder if my actual agenda in reaching out to him was actually to poke the pompous bear. As much as I'm disappointed to claim it, I'm now convinced that part of my agenda was to try to outsmart him. How dark is that? Of course, I wasn't at all aware of my darker agenda at the time, but his words forced me to dig deeper into my own self-awareness. Feminine hygiene products aside, I've found myself adopting the question, what is my agenda, in all kinds of scenarios since then. And I've determined this much. I can't think of a single circumstance where one's action does not have an agenda. Truly, I asked some friends and family if they could think of any examples, and they all came up dry. If you can think of an example, please enlighten me. Let's consider media sources. Picking up stories with victims and perpetrators. The obvious agenda is informing the public, but the hidden agendas are surely layered. Riding the coattails of another's tragedy to boost ratings, to stay relevant, to fill airspace, to make money, to keep jobs, etc. Agendas everywhere. Or internet trolls commenting with pseudo-anonymity in outrageously mean ways on others' content. What's the agenda there? My guess on the obvious agenda is making it known that the consumed content is disliked, but the hidden agenda likely has to do with wanting to silence another, or wanting to feel superior over another, or wanting public attention of one's own. I thought up a number of personal circumstances where I found myself triggered, taking offense, or feeling defensive enough by the actions of another that I was compelled to say or do something. In every scenario, I could determine an obvious agenda and also a subtler, unclaimed agenda. Then I thought up benign scenarios, like how I recently took up playing mahjong. What was my agenda? The obvious one is that I'm a gamer and I want to have fun challenging myself in a new way. But also, a quieter agenda is to get invited to play the game with some nice mahjong enthusiast women whom I'd like to befriend. I bring this up because I consider the question, what is my agenda, to be a valuable tool in harnessing self-awareness. It's a question that requires us to take a beat before we respond to scenarios that upset us. I invite you to try it out before you next act upon a heated situation. Ask yourself, what is my agenda? Come up with an answer. Then ask yourself, as if you're your own trusted best friend, and what's my hidden agenda? Once you come up with your answer to the second, harder question, thoughtfully consider the information that you've unearthed. Can you knowingly stand behind that agenda? Are you proud of that agenda? If so, act as you feel compelled. If not, perhaps you hold back. Seek counsel from a trusted person. Reflect on it for longer before acting. I look around, especially online, and feel overwhelmed by the dark cloud of havoc that's been created in our culture from impulsive, hasty responses to other people's lives and content. The problem is far-reaching, contagious, and seemingly incurable. I don't have a solution to wipe clean the slate, but I do believe that we each have the power to behave as antidotes in small, personal ways by taking accountability for our own actions at every turn, to be as self-aware as we're able to be, to feel confident and clear-headed about our agendas, to act with integrity. Having faith in the positive power of small good intentions feels like a monstrous uphill climb. So instead, I, for one, will focus on my agenda of taking one self-aware step at a time. Let's grow. Thanks for being here. I'm Lindsay Hurdy. You can learn all about me on my website, lindsayhurdy.com, and you can find all of my writing on my Substack, lindsayhurdy.substack.com. I hope you'll go there first, actually, because that's where I love to connect with people the most. Thanks for being here today. Until next time.
Be sure to like and subscribe and click that bell to get alerts for new posts. I'd be ever grateful.